PhD international student in the electrical engineering department. I want to start off by saying that I'm no tree-hugging hippie. I'm not liver, and I believe guns and violence are sometimes necessary. I'll even go so far as to say that sometimes I wish the challenging of duels was legal. But as an international student, I am opposed to this controversial concealed handgun bill. I have many reasons for this, most of which have been beaten to death by others, or if not, they will be beaten to death by others. But my most personal reason is that as an international student, because of federal regulations, it is next to impossible for me to acquire a concealed handgun license. In fact, I've researched this to the extent that my schedule allows it, and have found that the illegality of us non-resident internationals owning anything more deadly than a kitchen knife or a handful of fireworks is debatable. I can't say I disagree with this, as us foreigners should never have the means by which to mount a revolution here. We certainly want legal firearms in good hands in order to match the forces of all firearms, legal or not, in evil or lunatic hands. I have already accepted that I will legally not be allowed to even the odds for myself outside of campus. I accept my forced personal disadvantage and mismatch because I am a visitor in this country. However, I am an Aggie, and I am not a visitor in this university. Your University Drive, where I live, I'll accept my mismatch. But within the streets and halls of Texas A&M, I'll be very unhappy to do so. Am I to rely on fellow Aggie firepower to protect me when those same Aggies don't feel that the police's firepower is sufficient? How can I protect myself against them should they lose their heads? That is the main point I wanted to carry out here. The bill is asking me to accept the added danger introduced by legally carried firearms on campus, while there is no provision for me to even the odds for myself. Outside of campus, fine. It's not my country, and I'm happy to live with it. But inside of campus, it's a different matter. So I stand in agreement with the SVP's veto of this bill. I would ask the Student Senate to consider the disadvantage international students are put in more strongly with regards to this matter. That's all I have to say.
First question is Senator Russo.
Howdy, Chris Russo, off campus. Is not Texas A&M University an entity of the government of the state of Texas?
Yes.
Okay. Quick follow-up.
There are two other people in line for questions. Okay, next is Senator Allen. Senator Allen. You raised your placard. All right, well then we can have a follow-up. But first, Senator Russo.
Oh, I yield to Senator Russo's follow-up.
Okay, go for it.
Then very quickly, are not the same rights and privileges privy to the citizens of the state of Texas here than anywhere else, or shouldn't they be? What is so different about college ground that makes it any more inherently dangerous than, say, the movie theater or a restaurant or, you know, just walking out in the park?
I'm sorry, can you say that again? No, I realized that I came off a little rude. I didn't mean to be rude about my...
I wasn't trying to imply that at all. May I restate my question, Mr. Speaker?
Units.
Okay, I guess what I'm trying to say is that why then, as citizens of the state of Texas, should we be denied those rights and privileges by the university? And why do you think that a college campus is any more inherently unsafe with concealed carry than, say, a restaurant or a movie theater or walking in the park or anywhere else in public life?
I feel like the argument you're giving me is, if you don't like it, you can go away.
No.
Well, because that's how I feel. Because like, you know, outside of campus, it's fine. I choose whatever restaurant I go to, right? And I can go to a restaurant like if they say, if I go to a bar and they say that there's like, you know, you can carry a handgun here, it's okay. The bar is okay with having a handgun. Then I'm not going in there. But like, I mean, we're talking about Texas, like this is a university, and I understand that it is a government university? Where am I going with this?
Well, we have to move on to the next question. Senator Slusser.
I have a hard time answering that, I'll be honest.
Thank you.
Senator Slusser calls, Commissioner Prentice.
What?
It's short, it's short.
Okay.
I assume from your speech that you have faith in the police department on campus.
Yes, I do.
So, do you not have faith in the procedures and all the processes to get a concealed carry license for someone to carry it?
The point is, like, even when you consider, like, a situation where martial arts, right? Like, you learn how to defend yourself. There's always this assumption that the guy who you teach how to defend himself is not going to use that same knowledge to hurt someone else incorrectly, like in an illegal manner. Right? So, when you get a concealed handgun license, that's fine, but like, how are you guys so confident that nobody with a concealed handgun license is capable of losing their hand? Oh, so do I have faith in it? Do I have 100% faith in it? No. I don't have 100%.
I'm really sorry, but we do have to keep things moving.
All right, yeah.
Next up is Archana NEPS major. I don't know all of these major acronyms. It gets me every single time. From International Student Association, a resident of College Station, Texas, from the class of 2013.
Howdy.
Hi.
Speaker Bobbin gave an example of the women's rights or the women involvement in the Senate, right? Something about the voting. And I couldn't stop comparing women with guns right now, right? So I'll be a space shooter right now. What I'm threatened about, I'm really threatened about this bill is that what Sanjay spoke about. I'm not against your liberty to have guns. I'm not against your liberty and freedom to protect yourself and your family, right? But what I'm against is 4,000 students, all international students, not being able to do the same. And that creates an inherent discrimination in the bill. So unless you give me a ring with a gun, I'm not allowed to pass this bill. Sorry. Because I cannot sit in a class next to like 10,000, no, next to 100 people who are having guns, and I'm the only one with a few other international students not able to have guns. Okay? That's it. Now, I want to answer something about what Senator Russo asked the question about why is it different about campuses. It is different about campuses. I'm not going to yell out on the street, make a stage for myself and say, hey, this is my opinion. I'm never going to do that. But I can do that on college campuses because college campuses aren't necessarily meant for exchanging ideas, right? For having an opinion, for strongly speaking your voices, right? The way I'm speaking now, I would not be able to speak the same way openly if I knew all senators are carrying guns here except for a couple international students if I see any. I wouldn't be able to. So that it necessarily threatens my ability to publicly speak. And I will not jeopardize the ability of 4,000 students to speak on this campus. And that's why I oppose this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there there are several questions. The first one goes to Senator Woolsey.
Senator Woolsey, Northside. Thank you for coming and speaking to us. My question is, do you believe that because international students aren't allowed to carry weapons, that the legal concealed handgun license holders who are 21 and over should also be denied that right?
No, but unless you address the discrimination, you may not. You do not want to pass that law. That's all I'm saying. I'm for guns, okay? I'm for guns if it's a non-discriminatory law. Does that make sense? I'm not opposing. Okay, I understand the debate on both sides. If you ask me personally, I'm not a gun person, okay? But I understand your freedom. I understand your freedom to carry a gun and protect yourself. And I do understand that anyone above 21 legally obtaining
Yes,
Okay,
30 seconds each for questions.
Okay, yeah. So I answered my question, I think.
Okay, thank you.
The next question goes to Chair Miller. Okay, next question goes to Chair Sosa.
John.
Are there any further questions? Senator Caldwell.
Senator Caldwell, off campus, I just wanted to ask you, as we get a chance to ask him, you say that it's discriminatory because you're not allowed to have a handgun or have a concealed carry license. I'm 20 years old and I'm not allowed to have a concealed carry license. Is that discriminatory against me as well?
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions? Senator Russo.
Do you think it's discriminatory that people that have a history of like psychological problems or anything are denied concealed carry, or the people that are under the age of 18 or 21? Is that discrimination as well? Do you think that that's discriminatory?
No, because, well, legally I'm an adult, so I should be able to, and I don't have any psychological problems.
Quick follow-up.
So, in that case, I do follow in all the legal aspects of owning a gun, right? But just because I'm an international, it is discriminatory. And I'm not saying that I should be having a gun. I understand what Sunday said is the same thing. It is a threat to the national security to allow internationals to have guns, right? I agree with that. But how do you make me believe that I will be safe on this campus with all my 4,000 fellow international students when you have guns around me?
Your follow-up is granted because for individuals representing organizations, they actually get 6 questions, not 3.
Okay. Are there not already laws and protections against anyone using those sorts of weapons against people illegally?
No, I don't get your question. Can I answer?
Yes. It is illegal to shoot someone, and therefore no one's going to just draw a weapon in the middle of a room.
Sure. Sure. But in that case, why do you need guns on campus? No one's going to shoot you because that's illegal, right?
Senator Woolridge.
Senator Woolridge, just wanted to ask, do you think that the better place to bring up the argument of it's discriminatory to not allow international students to carry, you think it would be a better place to bring that up in like the state or federal government as opposed to in a student senate?
Yes, but why do I go to the government when you are making the laws here for me as an athlete, right?
There is another question on the docket, so, and who had that? Senator Wilson.
Yeah. Actually, I'll yield to Senator Woolridge.
Go ahead.
To answer that is, we're not making a law. All that this bill is trying to do is allow what's already legal in the state, like everywhere else, to carry over onto this campus. So it's not that we're writing a new law, it's just we're trying to extend it onto this campus.
I agree what you're trying to say, and that's the same thing Senator Russo said. What I'm saying is, on this campus, because I feel safe around this campus, because there are no guns around, no one's going to shoot me because I have a different opinion than you, right? But if there are guns around campus, and that's why I don't go openly out in public and say what I want to say. I feel more safe around campus. And that's what campuses are meant for. That's what educational institutes are for. We have to differ, we have to have different opinions, and that's the only way we are going to learn. And if the education institute doesn't allow me to, for self-development, where will I get it? I'm not going to go out in a public place and differ on things, right? That's why I want to save campus.
All right, and that concludes the period for question and answer. Thank you for coming, Archon. Next up is Arjun Ahluwalia.
My name is Arjun Ahluwalia, and I'm a business major undergrad sophomore from Mumbai, India, and I'm also an international student. I'm sorry you've had too much of this today, but I'm not going to touch upon the same things. I'm the I-Council speaker, and I basically address 10 to 15 International Student Association presidents, and they have views about whatever they think is right. All 15 said that they don't want this law to be passed. Now that's one thing, let's leave that aside. The reason my mom sent me to Texas A&M was because this is a safe school. The kids don't go as crazy here as they do in UCLA, or in NYU, or they do wherever else. Austin, for example. Yeah. So that's why I came here. And if my mom comes to know that this bill got passed, she'll be BBMing me. Not to wear a sweater in the winter, but to wear a bulletproof jacket and walk around. Texas A&M makes its revenue also from international students. We are 4,900 of us. Each of us pay twice as much as each Texan resident does. So I'm just throwing a different light here. I don't know if you all knew this. Just to try to tell you that how it will look on Texas A&M's image all across the world, because it is there. And fortunately, it was getting pretty well, because everyone wants diversity on this campus, etc. President opts for it, and everyone's trying their best. But this law would just get all those efforts which we've tried to do done. And that's all I wanted to say. I think they've said all the other things I would want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you for coming.
Just a quick point of information, Mr. Speaker. Since this has been addressed, I wanted to ask, is it possible for an international student to obtain a concealed handgun license in the state of Texas?
It depends. Because this was brought up the last time this was debated, I did some research into this. And in order to get a concealed handgun license, there are certain documents people have to turn in. And so one of the questions they ask is, what is your place of birth? And if your place of birth is outside the United States, that's one of many questions that are asked. And so they ask for the addresses in the last 5 years. And so they do check into everyone who has a place of birth outside the U.S. They make them provide a passport or a certificate of naturalization or a visa if they're international. So the requirement is that for anyone who is not a U.S. citizen, they have to be a resident for 6 months of the state of Texas. So what that means basically is that there are certain types of visa that make you residents. You basically have to be an immigrant. So some international students will be immigrants. Some of them are not immigrants because they intend to return to their country of origin.
Point of information, Mr. Speaker, you said that they have to be residents of the state of Texas. If they're residents, then they're not international students.
That's not
Can I just talk here 1 second?
no, you may.
Oh my God.
Okay, the definition of an international student is someone who is a foreign national. So someone who is not a U.S. citizen who is attending school at Texas A&M is an international student here. So some international students are residents of the state of Texas. Some of them are not. It just all depends.
The definition of an international student is he's born and raised in his country till the time he's 18 and straight comes to Texas A&M to study. The reason the visa is given to an international student is a person who pays a different fee, right? A person who graduates from a high school in Texas is a Texan resident. He is given all the privileges.
Point of information, Mr. Speaker. Kerry Cheshire, Liberal Affairs. Does the guest have 4 right now? It's my understanding that he used up his time and would not have speaking privileges unless the question was asked of him.
You are actually correct. The guest is out of order. The period for question and answer didn't pass. So, Chair Harris. A motion has been made to extend what? The period of presentation has already closed.
Can I ask one question?
Yes, you may.
Can you please define the
Okay, so I've been trying to define international student to Texas A&M since the time I've come here. I'm in Student Government Association Diversity, so we keep having events, etc. Texas A&M, for some reason, thinks international students is anyone who was just born in a different country. That person is not an international student. He was just born somewhere else. He came, he did his high school in Texas, and hence is a Texas resident, and hence pays the Texas resident fees to Texas A&M College Station.
Please finish your sentence.
The reason I came to how do you come to Texas A&M? How do you get a visa to Texas A&M when you're an international? You get a visa based upon the fact that you have to go back to your country to your home country after you're done with graduation. I don't want to stay here once more.
I'm sorry that your time is done here. Now, if there are further questions, though, you have to, so Senator Zelaya.
Yes, why did you come to Texas A&M?
Why did I come to Texas A&M?
Yeah, before you interrupted, you were talking about
That's
why you came to Texas A&M.
Oh,
He was out of order. You can answer your question.
okay. So I came to Texas A&M because it was safe, right? How I came to Texas A&M was, again, if I can take this time to reiterate the previous thing I was saying. You get a visa for 5 years till the time you graduate, and then I want to go back to my country and run a business of my own. I'm not planning to stay here, so I don't plan to get the residency, and hence I won't be allowed to buy a gun. The laws states that an international student cannot buy a gun. Period.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for coming. I do want to state that the reason for limiting times and interrupting guests and stuff is not out of rudeness. I really do not like doing it. The only reason is because we have 11 individuals on open forum, and that was number 5. So we do have a lot to get through today, and so in the interest of time, please keep that in mind. Next up is Austin Luce, a poli-sci major from off-campus, class of 2014.
Hey! Howdy, Max.
Howdy.
I wanted to talk to you about a very important issue. It's not even concealed carry. So I want to talk to you about something called a Doppler grandparent. So it's something I've done for a couple of years. I know some of y'all have been part of it before, but basically what I do, it's me and a group of friends. We go to a nursing home and we donate baskets to people who don't have family members, people who aren't really going to have Christmas this year, and we give baskets to them. So I'd love to have y'all join us. Basically, their baskets are pre-approved, beautifully wrapped, pre-approved by the people who work there. $20, and we're donating 100 this year. So in the past we did donate 30, then we did 70. This year we're doing 100. So it's a big goal, and we need a lot of help. And if you want to get a hold of me, I'll be on Facebook during the meeting, just like the rest of you. So you can just ask me about that. Have a good day. Yeah. Thanks, and gig 'em. So actually, one other.
No, go ahead.
Oh, one other thing I was going to say is Senator Schlusser forgot her iPhone charger. So if anybody has one that they'd like to loan her during the meeting, she would appreciate that.
Senator Puente.
Senator Puente off campus. I think it's great what you're doing. Can you describe what exactly is going into the baskets?
Oh, basically what it is it's through my Mary Day unit, and so it has different things that are things for works for men or women. We have like a mint bliss, energizing foot and leg lotion, hand creams, things along those lines.
Chair Harris.
Okay, so just kind of going off that question, so you're asking for a monetary donation, not an actual physical donation of goods that would go to these?
Both actually.
Okay.
Yeah, the items are, I mean, all run by the staff, but I'm sure like extra items can be donated to it. But yeah, maybe just monetary donations is what I asking for.
All right, are there any further questions? Seeing none, thank you for coming. All right, next up is Camille Mole, a poli-sci major from off-campus, class of 2013.
Howdy.
Howdy.
So I'm gonna march on the same subject that everyone else has been marching on. Sorry. I sat through the Halloween meeting and I got to listen to everybody say their side. And one of the most dismaying things is that a lot of the arguments were based in emotions and what the majority of the students wanted. And we as senators are elected to read upon the topic, look over the facts, and make an educated decision for the bill. And I spoke with students all around campus after the referendum came out. I was a freshman. Yeah, that's correct. No, I was a sophomore. That was incorrect. I was a sophomore, and many that I talked to misinterpreted the wording of the referendum, which is rather disheartening for me to have heard. And talking to them, they were like, "Oh, I had no idea that's what it was talking about. I didn't realize." And it was very difficult because what they saw it as is some every average Joe walking around being able to walk around campus with a block in their back pocket, which is kind of not at all what it was about. And a lot of them were they logged in, they were hoping to vote for student body president and yell leaders. That's all they cared about. And then they saw the referendum at the bottom, they're like, okay, I'll vote for this. And then they read it real quickly and voted. The weeks leading up to the referendum, the BAT published a total of 2 articles on the subject, and one was about the Senate passing a bill calling for a referendum, and the second one was about, was against concealed carry. And I talked to people, and it was, some of the people never even stopped to consider that there are at least 90 campuses in the country that allow concealed carry on campus, and over their combined hundreds of semesters have never had a single resulting assault, threat, or suicide. Texas A&M may be a safer campus, but in 2011, the crime reports were on campus that there were 3 reported sex offenses committed on campus, and in 2010 there were 4, keeping in mind that according to a study done by the Justice Department, only 54% of sex offenses, a total of 54% of sex offenses are never reported. And that is just looking, that doesn't include crimes such as robbery, aggravated assault, hate crimes, etc. Prevention and preparedness go hand in hand. You can't prevent anything awful from ever happening, but you can be prepared to protect yourself in that case. It doesn't, and when it comes to the best and most effective way to protect yourself, it's going to be with a handgun, not with a knife, not with a taser, not with pepper spray. Criminals are going to break laws, they don't care. But the thing you can do is level the playing field, saying, I refuse to be a victim. So whenever you make a decision tonight, look at the facts, decide, look at what you're elected to do, and make a decision based off of the facts. Thanks, and go.
I'm just wondering if the referendum was worded differently, would you, or if the question was worded differently, would you support it going to referendum?
No, because the students are still going to click on it and vote for it, even though they're not going to read up on the facts. Students in it is given information, and they read up on it. They're supposed to read up on it. That's what their job is to do.
Mr. Executive Vice President, please stay in order.
Okay, you are out of order. If it happens again, you're removed. Okay, it's at the discretion of the speaker, and I'm not going to tolerate this. Next question. You have 18 seconds remaining.
Did I sufficiently answer that?
All right, next question, Senator Woolsey.
Senator Woolsey, Northside. When you're talking about the referendum question, do you feel that that was kind of a loaded question that was angled towards the people who were making it, towards their political views?
Yes, it slightly was. I took a class over it 2 semesters ago, over the way questions are worded to slant us one way or another. And after reading the referendum question, if you didn't exactly know specifically what it was talking about and that's what it was, that was geared toward, yes.
Thank you.
All right, and the final question is Senator Bryson.
Senator Bryson, College of Science. Thank you, Mel. I just wanted to ask, have you ever talked to somebody who did not have a lot of knowledge on concealed handguns, who were against it before, and you showed them the facts, and then they understood exactly why that you were for it? And
yes, I did that all of the last legislative session down at the Texas Capitol, and even talked to their legislative aides. I talked to some of them and presented them with facts that they didn't know were true. On campus, I talked to students at the concealed carry booth, and a lot of them don't know certain places you can carry. A lot of them don't know who can carry. Some people make mistakes as far as what paperwork they have to get in, how expensive it is, and how much training it goes through.
Thank you.
And that concludes question and answer. Thank you for coming. Libby Burfoot, an English major from off-campus, class of 2016.
Howdy.
Howdy.
When I found out that I was to attend Texas A&M, I can't begin to tell you how overwhelmed and honored I was the opportunity to become a part of the largest and most supporting group of people around, the Aggie family. To be able to continue the traditions and experience the encouragement and support not only the school but the people offer is truly a gift. But this family experience, especially at a school of 50,000 plus, must be maintained and nurtured at all times. A family is synonymous with a team. In order for the team to function, it's imperative that each teammate trust the other to do their job and fight for a common goal. But as we all know, trust comes at a price. In any relationship, trust is a risk, but without it, nothing can be achieved. Even a simple howdy on campus requires a level of trust that it will be reciprocated. But the students at A&M have embraced this tradition of family and continue this valued greeting nonetheless. Being allowed to carry a concealed handgun on campus is essentially no different. It portrays trust in each other. By being allowed to carry a concealed weapon on campus, the student body is communicating to each and every student and faculty member, I trust you to take care of me, for we are fellow Aggies and we are family. By not allowing this rite of passage, this act of trust, we are communicating that our team, our family, is not of the strength and caliber we say it is. Our actions speak louder than our words. Trust is not blind to the possibility of failure. Rather, it's the acceptance that there will be a net to catch you if and when you fall. After being a part of the Aggie family for only a few months, I can safely say I trust this family, this team. But now I must ask, do you trust this family?
Are there any questions? Senator Cole.
First, thank you for that, Senator Cole. I love your analogy about the Aggie family. I just wanted to ask, just to add on to your analogy, when you're a part of a family, isn't it true that a responsible family member should protect those that come in and try to harm the family? Always. Thank you.
Seeing none, thank you for coming, Ms. Orfoot.
Point of personal preference, Mr. Speaker, Terry Cheshire, Legislative Affairs. Can we shut that door? It's getting a little noisy, and maybe those people could go over to that side, possibly, because the hallway is a little noisy.
If there are people in the hallway trying to listen to the meeting, I'd prefer not to. I will, but I can't hear them over here, but if you guys are being, if there's enough noise that it's disruptive, then I would ask.
I'm the only one on this line.
Okay. Okay. Next up is.
4 to 2, so if we can please shut that. Sounds like a referendum.
Shut the door. Because it's, I guess, being disruptive. Hallway needs.
I asked them to.
Okay. All right. Next up is Audrey Henderson, a civil engineering major from off-campus class of 2016.
Howdy.
Hi.
I'm Audrey Henderson, a freshman civil engineering major from Dallas, Texas, and it's an honor to be able to speak on behalf of my fellow women and peers about not only our safety on campus, but our freedoms as well. As both a student and a young adult, I realize that safety on campus is vital, both for students' mental and physical well-being. Signs declaring that our campus is gun-free seem to appease many, but in reality, how many colleges have seen tragedy due to shootings even with these same signs? Unfortunately, these signs only stop the law-abiding students and citizens, but not those determined to inflict pain and tragedy. At what cost to our freedom, ourselves be sacrificed for apparent safety? Legalizing concealed handguns on campus would potentially act as a repellent to these baseless crimes. A crime is more likely to be committed where it is known that the victims are virtually defenseless, compared to where it is known that these victims can and will take action to defend themselves. Legalizing concealed weapons on campus would also allow for women's peace of mind. Women understandably do not share the same strength and capability of a man when it comes to defending themselves. Mace and tasers frequently are not enough to fend off an attacker, and therefore assault and rape are still realities many have to face. With the ability to carry concealed weapons on campus, women would gain both safety and freedom. Safety from the harsh and ugly realities of the world, even on the A&M campus, and freedom from the fear of not being able to defend one's life and well-being should she need to. By legalizing concealed weapons on campus, freedom is not being sacrificed for safety, but rather granting this freedom is granting more safety. In the instance, the two are not separate from each other, but go hand in hand. As Aggies, we stand for our country, our community, and our family, and it's time we stand for our rights.
Sarah Garcia.
Engineering, I'm student chemistry. You're a freshman, can I have your preface?
Yes.
I'm assuming you're under 21?
Yes, I am.
And you're still for this bill, even though you're not legally allowed to have the concealed handgun license?
Yes.
Next question is
John.
are there any further questions?
Another quick point of information, because it's been addressed several times. Are under the student rules of Texas A&M, are students at Texas A&M or faculty allowed to carry tasers or pepper spray?
No, they're not.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions? Seeing none, thank you for coming, Ms. Henderson. Next up is James Ross, a University Studies major, off-campus class of 2015.
Howdy! Howdy! Now, I'm not nearly as pretty as my three predecessors, so I'll do my best. My name is James Ross, and I'm a sophomore University Studies major from Monterrey, Mexico. And I'd like to open with some food for thought. This quote comes from the office of President Thomas Jefferson. Laws that forbid the carrying of arms disarm only those who are neither inclined nor determined to commit crimes. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the student body has spoken. As you may well know, on November 14, 2012, the 65th General Session of the Texas A&M University Student Senate voted to approve the Personal Protection Bill and support concealed carry on campus. President John Claybrook, for reasons I will not speculate on, chose to challenge your decision and took it upon himself to stand against your right, my right, our right to lawful self-defense on campus. Senators, now is your chance to stand up for your decision and prove your commitment to your constituents. Therefore, I'm asking you, will you, as elected members of the student representative body on this campus, defend the rights of the Aggies you've sworn to represent, or will you defer to the will of one man? Thanks and good.
Off campus. I just want to, do you think that, let's say for a majority of our constituents who voted us in here, do you think that they voted us to be student senators because of our political ideologies or our views on this issue?
Senator Brown, personally, I don't know why your constituents voted you in.
I think you always speak to us. Now, you mentioned that you're a sophomore and that you're from Mexico, so I'm assuming that you're under 21 and possibly an international student. Do you feel discriminated against if this were to pass?
No, I'm not an international student, and if I was, it would be an issue. I believe I've earned the right to my concealed handgun license, which I possess through service in the military.
Thank you for your service.
Are there any further questions? Seeing none, thank you for having us, Mr. Ross. And the final speaker I'm moving forward is Fernando Sosa, poli-sci major from Student Senate. Residency is Southside Residence Halls, class of 2015. Thank you.
Howdy.
Howdy.
The sophomore class president, Megan D'Amaro, asked me to share a statement that she submitted to you all, so that's what I'm going to do during my time in open forum. She starts. As a student at Texas A&M who has been in the vicinity of various code rooms, including a gunman, a shooting, and a bomb threat within the past few months, I no longer take my safety for granted. While I like to believe that I am safer at A&M than anywhere else, there are certain risks associated with having an open campus. Like many other Aggies, I grew up around firearms and am familiar with the process required to obtain a concealed handgun permit. And I have always been a believer that when a governing body bans weapons, they put the general law-abiding citizenship at risk to those criminals who disregard such restriction. There is an excellent chance that in scenarios such as Columbine, VTech, or even the Aurora shooting, fewer students or people would have suffered had a concealed carry weapon been a factor. I would, with several extra precautions, such as record keeping of those who hold a concealed handgun permit, etc., support concealed carry on campus as a safeguard against any who might wish to harm our student body.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you for coming, Chair Sosa. That concludes open forum. And we will now recognize Senator Luce, who will read the mission statement.
The mission statement of Texas A&M is as follows. The Texas A&M University Student Senate represents all students in order to enhance the Texas A&M experience within our university and communities through research, legislation, and advocacy in accordance with the core values of our institution. Our core values are excellence, integrity, respect, loyalty, leadership, and self-service.
All right. The next item on our agenda is Texas Aggies making changes, who will be giving a special presentation on what they announced. TMC. Mayor? Very good. Howdy. Howdy. Oh, yes, you can.
Hi guys, how are y'all tonight?
Good.
It's a little hot in here.
We'll have 10 minutes.
Howdy guys, my name is Mary Gallagher and I am co-chair of Texas Aggies Making Changes. Unfortunately, our ag input expert could not be here tonight. He was blessed with 5 tests this week. So I'm going to do my best and give this presentation. At the end of the presentation, I do have his email if y'all have any questions that I cannot answer. He is your guy, so please email him. Probably won't get back to y'all until Monday because it's going to be a long week for him. A little bit about Ag Input. Ag Input is our way of taking suggestions and concerns from the student body. First of all, we take the suggestions from students, visitors, and the faculty. And then we filter a process. We kind of go through them, the good and the bad. Then we have the solution. That's when we kind of brainstorm and decide what actions we can take and if there's any projects that our organization can implement and come up with to address this concern. We then communicate with the students who made the concerns by sending them an email saying, thank you for commenting or addressing your concern. We are trying to make a change or implement it through the system however we can. And that way that they go and keep making suggestions. So this is our Ag Input kind of circle of life.
We then have 7 boxes. We have boxes in Weiner, WCL, the Commons, and Blockers, Sabisa, Coldest, and the MSC. We also have an ag input website that they can make their suggestions and concerns on the website. We have 5 categories. We have groundskeeping, which is landscaping. We have transportation, that's for suggestions about buses and parking. And then we have campus improvement, that's kind of all the suggestions we get that kind of don't go into any of the other categories. We have dining, those food services, and then the MSC. And the MSC has its own group because it's one of our most used boxes, and so they get their own. Groundskeeping, these are some of the suggestions we have. Grass and vegetation around front of Heldenfelds is dying or gone. Add trees on West Campus and out near George Bush Library. Transportation, add bus routes to certain apartment complexes. Add bus routes from West Campus to the golf course. Need better bus routes to Zachary or Mitchell Campus building. And increase bus operations on nights and weekends. Campus improvement, like I said, this is kind of like everything that we couldn't find a category for. So add more complexes all over campus, more bike racks in high traffic areas, and reduce smells in various buildings. Apparently some of our buildings smell really bad. Hopefully it's not the person next to you. We have dining. Sabisa needs more fresh food more frequently. Don't now receive for every transaction at waste paper. More vegetarian options. I actually live with a vegetarian, so I'm sure she's kind of all for this. And outsourcing has led to increased pricing. MSC. We have add printers in the MSC, add benches to the back of the MSC, and baby changing tables. As students, we don't really think of this because not many of us have babies. But I know even my advisor has to go all the way to the Evans Library to change her baby when her baby's on campus there. What can we do? As TNC, we have come up with some of the programs to address the concerns that we have, like Adopt a Flower Bed. We have flower beds outside of Evans to help improve campus ground. Also, Acre Aggie Campus Restoration Effort. This is our 2nd year, and we kind of put it in the fall because talking groundskeeping, they just don't have the manpower, especially during the fall, because they're always cleaning up our mess after football games for a couple days. So it's our way to get them some manpower and pick up trash. And then we have our member meetings, like we've scraped gum. And as a girl, you know, wasn't too like, oh wow, this is going to be fun. But actually, all the girls were the ones on the ground scraping the gum, and the guys were walking around with the trash bags. Figure that. And then, if we can't make it, or like if we can't think of something or a way we can implement it, or we need more resources, we go to maintenance, transportation, and dining, VP for student affairs, and the Senate. Yeah, guys. And everything can look for improvement. It's always good to improve. So some of the things we have are more boxes. We're looking to add boxes to Heldenfeld and the Harrington Education Building. Technology. It's pretty much how we do everything now. I mean, I want to check half the emails I get if it wasn't for my iPhone. And so we really want to beef up our infrastructure, enhance our website, make it public for the students and other organizations to see some of these concerns and suggestions that are given to us. Also, a touchscreen for the MSC Ag Input box, maybe on the Tamiya mobile app, having one for Ag Input, so it's right there, click away. Acting with other organizations, like I said earlier, if we make it public, some of these suggestions, then organizations like Replant could possibly tackle the issue about doing more trees around George Bush Library. Then we have benefits of parting with y'all, Senate. Pretty much just wider voice for concerns. This is the student body, and y'all represent the student body, so this would give y'all a way to kind of survey what the students thought. We also have creativity, brainstorming it, trying to figure out how to implement and fix some of these suggestions and concerns. And then additional connections and networking, and then visibility and awareness of Ag Input. And like I said, I'm not no expert on this, so if y'all have any concerns that I cannot answer, I will try my best right now. But Sean Michelli is your guy, so please write down his email and get in contact with him. Any questions?
Perfect. I have 4 senators listed for questions, so we'll start with, it's 5 minutes, so as many we need to can ask. First is Chair Harris.
Chair Harris, Rules and Regulations. I know they're in the past, in 62nd, 63rd sessions, there used to be a little bit of animosity between, not on y'all's part, but on our part. What is one way or one thing that the student cities could do to help TAMC accomplish that?
I think honestly it would be better, I mean, it would be kind of on our end. We need to come to y'all and be like, this is what we have. This is what we need help. These are some of the suggestions we have. And because we are the ones who collect that concern and everything. So I think it kind of, I mean, this is my 2nd year, so coming from outside view, I really think that maybe coming to more of the Senate meetings or presenting some of these more of these ideas would help y'all kind of understand what we're doing and maybe what y'all can do as well.
All right, next question, Chair Embry.
What's wrong?
Chair Sosa.
Chair Sosa Finance. First of all, thank you for this presentation, the first one of the TAMC Senate Cooperation Act. I appreciate you coming and presenting. How often do y'all get suggestions that are not things that you think can be worked on by students or that are just not realistic?
We have a lot of bad ones. It's kind of like, I mean, some people want us to pay for a new cell phone for them sometimes. And within a group of, I guess, we check our ad exec and checks it about twice a month, and he says pretty much there's probably a handful, like probably 5 to 10 good ones out of like a 30 file. It's just, some of them repeat, and so I would say about 10, he says the one that has the most like good advice is the ones that actually come from the MSC box, and he said, and that's why they kind of have the most, and they also deal with not just students, but visitors that come for football games. That's probably where we got a lot of the baby changing tables ideas and stuff, so that is a great question.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, next question, Senator Woolsey.
Senator Woolsey, Northside. I noticed on your dining slide you said something about having more vegetarian options. Have y'all considered something a little beefier for those of us who are on the huskier side?
If you want to write that in suggestions, we can get it to dining services. Thank you.
Are there any further questions? Seeing none, thank you for coming.
Thank
That was a great presentation.
Some of your point of personal preference, for sure, you mentioned senators like to go over this in more detail. Could that be sent to the Senate listserv?
Yes, it can. Yeah, the concern is that the file may be too big, so she's going to send it to me, and then I'll go through it. Like, I assume that the sections you want are the opinions on different things. So if the entire file can't be sent out, then I'll just pull those out and put them in the email. Next is the unit presentation for the Texas A&M Personal Protection Bill. Mr. Supervisor President, you have 10 minutes. Is there a presentation? There sure is. Email it to us. Yes. You have it, and then after that will be question and answer. It's there.
Howdy. Howdy. Wow, already. This is great. Well, this has been a little heated tonight, to say the least. I'd like to start off by saying that I hope everybody had a wonderful Thanksgiving and that y'all have enjoyed the Christmas music, holiday music, as much as I have as of late. So I'd like to, Scott's little deal at the beginning, he brought up 2 questions. And one question that he asked is, what is the right thing to do? The other question that he asked is what do you want to be remembered for? And I'd love to come back to those as we go on. So reasons for the veto. It's very simple. I don't believe that this bill is reflective of student opinion. That is a single reason. There have been a lot of deflective arguments made about this. The argument that this is a right has been made a lot. The argument that it doesn't need to go to a referendum has been made quite often. And personally, I don't see a whole lot of correlation between women being admitted to campus and having, concealed carry buildings on campus, but maybe that's just me. There was very little argument, pro-arguments, that this is what students truly want. And that is the purpose of student government, guys. The purpose of student government is to be great segue. Purpose of SGA. In the Constitution, the Student Government Association, Section 1, Article 2, it says, student government's purpose is to represent students. It does not say that student government's purpose is for Senate to enact policy that they think is going to be best for the students, although they might not know it yet. No, it says your job, your duty, is to represent students. It's very simple, guys. Very simple. So, current student opinion. I received quite a few emails, and Scott requested that that I sent him those emails that I received, and there were probably, I don't know, 100, 150 people who contacted me. One was, a lot of people were through veto that, or excuse me, a protest that ISA put on. There was a lot of domestic students who were for it. There were a lot of domestic students who were against it. There's so many arguments, one way or the other. There's so many good arguments from both sides, and I've heard them all, guys. I've listened to every single student. If you guys emailed me in the past week, I responded to your email. I read your email, and I took your opinion into consideration. When students contact me, it becomes a priority, and I've heard every single opinion that there is. However, aside from the debate, there are a few facts that we have, guys. In 2009, 54% of the student body voted against having concealed carry on campus. That is a fact. Close to 5,000 students voted. In 2011, 57% of students voted against having concealed carry on campus. That's another fact. In 2013, I know 2 years doesn't amount to a trend, but if the trend does continue, that would be around 60%. I don't know if it would be that way. However, what I really believe more than anything is that there is no possible way that 57% against it has swung so drastically that now 67% are for it, as was reflected in y'all's vote a couple weeks ago. There's no way. And as far as the referendum goes, guys, if we're truly doing our job, if we're truly reflecting student opinion and representing what students want, then why are we scared of a referendum? Would students not vote in favor if this is what they wanted? Guys, my personal view, this was a really difficult decision for me. The truth is that if concealed carry came up in a referendum, I would actually vote for it. So all you people who are so upset with me because I vetoed this, saying this has nothing to do with my personal opinion. I'm not entitled to a personal opinion this year. I'm entitled to represent the opinion of the students. That's my job. That's my duty. Okay? That's what I was elected to do. That's what each of you were elected to do. You've been entrusted by the student body to work on their behalf, to represent them, to be there for them. That's your job, guys. And when I hear that students in communication classes all over campus were debating this today, and so many students had absolutely no idea that this was going on, That makes me sad because that means that we're not doing our job. We're not going out and asking students' opinions. That's what we're here to do, guys. I hope that tonight can be a reminder of that. Guys, if history is any indicator, which I think it is, then students don't want this right now. It's plain and simple. And if we're to maintain the character and the trustworthiness of the student body as a student government association, then we cannot let this pass, guys. When that bill came to my desk and I looked at the facts and I looked what had happened in the past and I heard students' concerns, there is absolutely no way that I could look myself in the eye at the end of the day knowing that I let this slide through because I personally believed that this was what was going to be best. Absolutely not. We're here to represent students more than anything else, guys. Alternatives. Guys, we have to, I've said it time and time again, we have to do our job, okay? This is our duty. We have to represent students, all right? If you guys think this bill is a bad idea, then please uphold the veto. If you guys think that this bill is contrary to student opinion, then please uphold this veto. If you guys believe that this would fail in a referendum for a third time, uphold this veto. Guys, tonight is not a conversation about pros and cons of this bill. That's been debated. In this room, most people believe that concealed carry would be a good thing for this campus. But it's not about what this room believes, guys. It's about what the people out there think. It's about the student body. And we have to remember that, guys. Tonight is a reminder of our job, of our duty, and that is to represent students above all else. And I hope that you guys trust the greatest student body in the world to be able to vote for something like this, whether this is good or bad for our university. So, there are a lot of questions from the very start before I even said a word. So, Scott, Mr. Speaker, excuse me, would you like to begin some questions?
Yes. First up is Senator Mullen.
Mullen off campus. So, do you realize that by vetoing this bill, you're effectively telling me that I shouldn't have the right to protect my life somewhere I spend 60 hours a week waiting, and instead if I was placed in that situation, instead I have to wait for somebody to come and effectively rescue me?
Camille, if this was an issue of rights, this should be in the Texas Supreme Court. Okay? This is not a place to decide what our rights are. If it was our right, then we would have it here. But the truth is that on this campus, as of now, we don't have the right to carry a concealed handgun. And if it's that big of a deal, then it needs to be in a court to decide. This isn't the place to do it.
All right. Next is Senator Luce.
Senator Luce off campus. Mr. President, you stated in your official reason that essentially most of the students that you spoke to were against licensed concealed carry. So do you believe that the will of the majority should take away the rights of the minority?
Well, I effectively just answered that. If this is a rights issue, then it should be in a court. I don't think that it's really an issue of rights, guys. If it was our right to have a gun on campus right now, then we would have it. I think that the issue of rights is not settled in student government.
You're at the end of a long time. Okay, next, Senator Russo.
Senator Russo off campus. Mr. Speaker, a permission to briefly preface the question.
Sure.
Okay, Mr. President, in your email to students that were in support of this bill, you said, and I quote, "I agree with pretty much all of your points. I know that there is a lot of merit to having concealed carry on campus. I personally believe that our campus would be safer if we were allowed to carry concealed handguns on campus. Even though I doubt your data collection methods about what student opinion is, even if you are correct, even Pontius Pilate, when Jesus was brought before him, he didn't personally believe that there was any guilt there, but he yielded to the will of the people outside, and he handed him over to death and basically washed his hands of the whole thing. And what I'm asking is, are you willing to do that same thing in the face of both what you believe to be the safety of students and people's personal rights and their protections?
It's not about what I believe. I've said that again and again. This isn't about my opinion. That's why this decision was so hard for me. is because there's a lot of me that does see the merit in concealed carry, just like I told those students who emailed me. But it's not about what I believe. It's not about what you believe. It's about what they believe. And the facts that I have to base that decision on are 2 votes in 2009 and 2011. That's what I was given.
Brief follow-up, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Woolsey.
Howdy, Senator Woolsey, Northside. So in light of the recent Code Maroons we've had, we had a guy with a gun on campus that scared everybody. We had a bomb threat. What makes you think that a gun-free zone will prevent crime?
I don't believe I ever made that argument. So.
Well, by vetoing this, you're saying that the gun-free. Oh, sorry.
I didn't say one thing about this campus being safer because it's a gun-free zone. So I think that question is completely irrelevant.
All right. Brief follow-up at the end of the line.
All right, Chair Miller. Withdraw. Senator Bryson.
Withdraw.
Chair Price.
Chair Bryce, CR. Howdy, Mr. President. As a sophomore, I kind of take a little bit of offense to these referendums being mentioned so frequently. I was a senior in high school when these were taken. Where's my voice in this matter?
I hope it'll be heard with the rest of the student body in the spring.
Thank you.
Chair Cheshire.
Chair Cheshire, LA. You mentioned in the email, as Chris Russo mentioned, that you believe that concealed carry would make this campus safer. Do you believe then that by vetoing and withholding the support of the Student Senate to go lobby in Austin, that we would, in theory, overturn it and allow concealed carry, that you've maintained the current status quo of unsafety at Texas A&M?
Can you repeat that last part of the question?
Right, okay, you said in your email that I think concealed carry would make campus safer. So
Absolutely.
are you an accomplice to keeping it unsafe?
I don't believe so. You know what? I'll be honest. I think that our character means more than anything, and that's what it came down to me, was a character issue. And safe or unsafe, my duty as an elected student is to represent. And if I fail to do that, then I lose a sense of my character. And so that's ultimately what it came down to me, Carrie. And if campus is more unsafe because of me, then I'm doing it on behalf of thousands of people who agree with me, which is my duty. Thank you. Yeah.
Chair Mendry.
Howdy, Tyler Mendry. John, I understand your argument, and I agree with it that you aren't really entitled to your opinion. But my question is, for the legislative branch, student senators, we are voted for to represent an opinion that we give to represent students. So there's a difference in the role of the branches, in other words. There's the legislative branch. We give the opinions that the executive branch then goes and executes. So would you agree with that? Would you agree that the legislative branch has the role of representing student opinion?
Totally. And I think that the role of the executive branch is when I see that duty has been is failing to be done, it is then my duty to ensure that we're back on track and that we continue to represent students. And so I completely agree with you, and that's a great point. But if I feel like y'all's job isn't being done as it should be done, then I see it as my job and checks and balances to make sure that I can remind us of what our duty is.
Yeah,
thanks.
Senator Hightower. Withdrawn. Senator McNutt.
Howdy. Thomas McNutt, liberal arts. I represent a lot of causes. So brief preface, Mr. Speaker.
Sure.
John, bear with me for a second now. You're my friend. You're my friend. And we've had, to put it interestingly, a very dynamic relationship between the two of us, it's true. We sat in 3 debates together. God, I want to do something. But I heard you say to all of us many times that you promised not to always make the popular decision, but rather you did promise to make the right decision and what you believed was best for the student body. And that was something you said repeatedly. I feel like that is very, well, sorry, I can't answer, but can you address that one?
No, that's a great point. And here right now, I don't see myself as the popular one. There's actually 66% of people in this room who are probably pretty chapped at me. However, I believe the right decision is to make sure that we ensure that we are seen as a trustworthy branch of the student body that serves students, and that's our duty. And although you might not see this as the right decision in terms of safety, I see this as the right decision in terms of principle. Thanks, but that's a great question. Thanks.
Senator Heisel.
Senator Heisel, can I have a quick preface, please?
Yes.
Whenever this bill very first came up, I voted against it for the very same reasons that you vetoed it. However, since then, talking to people, I no longer believe what I believed 2 weeks ago. So my question to you is, 2 years ago, if only 10% of the student body voted in referendum, and this past week only 150 students, most of them self-admittedly from the same organization, emailed you. You've only talked to that small sample of students. How can you be confident in your decision that this is what represents the majority of the student body?
Well, in return, I would ask you if you've spoken to probably the people who are close to you, who probably shares, similar political views as yourself, which we do have to be careful of. 2 years ago, actually 10,000 people voted on it, and that's about 20% of the student body, which is, I think, a pretty good sample of what students believe. If we threw out the validity of elections because not everybody voted, then we'd never have a president of the United States, we'd never have any elected officials, because really only about 35% of the population votes. And so I have trouble agreeing with that argument, because it's just the way elections are.
Dr. do you have anything to follow up at the end of the line?
Yes, and speaking of which, there are only 20 seconds remaining in question and answer.
Mr. Speaker, I move to extend the period of question and answer by a period of 5 minutes.
Question and answer, a motion is made to extend the question and answer by 5 minutes. Minutes is received, multiple seconds. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay.
Nay.
In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have that. Question and answer will now go on for 10 minutes. Right now we're at 4 minutes and 40. So next up is Senator Castilleja.
Howdy. Engineering. This is more on after the bill passes. What would you and your executive team, would y'all have the same amount of vigor even if you're against right now and if it passes? And yeah.
Just as it's our duty to represent what the students believe in student government, it's just as much my duty, if the bill passes, to do what I can to make sure that happens. And, correct. If it comes to my desk, if you guys overturn my veto, then it becomes my job. And I take my job very seriously, and I'll do what I can to make it happen. But I hope that we're reminded of what our duty is. Thanks.
Senator Luce, your follow-up.
So, you stated before that you believe this is important, and we're debating.
It's important.
Or that this is important, that you probably agree with, like most of us in the room personally.
Right.
And we're debating a constitutional right of the students here, and but you are vetoing it because based on people you spoke to, they're not in favor of it. So where do you draw the distinction between leading with principles and leading based on which makes popular with the people you represent?
Okay. A very brief part of my presentation was about conversations with students. A large portion, the portion that I really wanted to focus on more than anything, was the factual votes in the past. And so I like to base my decisions on facts, And if there wasn't any reason to believe that this isn't something that students want, that there have been no previous precedents made, excuse me, then this would have sailed on through. But the fact is that there is a precedent, and students haven't wanted it in 2009. They didn't want it even more in 2011. And so it's an excellent question. I think that this decision to veto is based on principle, and as is the case in democracy, the popular opinion, the majority opinion wins, and so it's kind of a combination of those both. But thank you. That's a good question.
All right, next is Senator Russo.
Chris Russo, off campus. So I'm just trying to get a sense of your belief in pure delegate theory of representation here. Would you stand behind a referendum of students, no matter how heinous the results of that would be, if it were to deny people of a certain race or sex to be able to go to Texas A&M? Would you stand behind a referendum that the students decided that way?
I have a hard time believing that would happen now. I know Scott's example was brought up, and that was a much different time. But as a representative government, it's my job to represent what students want. And so I have a hard time believing that there would ever be something that denies basic rights to folks. But it's our job to represent.
Okay, thank you. All right, Senator Woolsey.
Senator Woolsey, Northside. So I kind of want to rephrase my first question a little differently. Do you think that criminals respect the fact that our campus is a gun-free zone?
Do they respect it?
Yes. Do you think they'll respect this is a gun-free zone? I can't commit a crime here.
No.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm not sure where you're going with that. I think we passed that.
Wanted to ask.
Thanks.
Senator
Senator, freshman class.
Yes, sir.
I'm not here to pick apart pros and cons, but many of the proponents of this bill have stated about how it's grossly unsafe campuses. In my opinion, and the opinion of a lot of students, we have a fairly safe campus. We have a lot of safeguards and check. We have code room. We've got a lot of things going for us. And so a catastrophic event like Virginia Tech is fairly unlikely. And so adding concealed carry would just it might make the campus safer, but just marginally. If our campus was so grossly unsafe, like Chair Cheshire and a lot of other proponents have stated, wouldn't that be better reflected in student opinion and in referendums? Wouldn't there be more of an outrage if we had such an unsafe campus if everyone
It's a great point. I think you're spot on. The other side of the argument is that, well, we need to prepare. It's hard to be reactive to terrible situations like Virginia Tech. And so my point in saying that, there's sides to both. There's two sides to the coin. But I totally respect that comment. I do think that student opinion would be better reflected through the referendum. Thank you.
All right, Chairman.
How do you get done? So just to follow up on my last question, do you believe that the referendums that students took 2 years ago, but do you believe that those votes are based on a well-researched viewpoint more so than student senate?
I would hope. I think that if there is any student body in the world to trust, I think it's ours, and that's why I think that. Being SVP here is the easiest job in the world when you get to lead the best student body in the world, and I think that students like to stay informed. I think they understand what's going on for the most part, and so I'm willing to take that risk. Thank you.
All right, Senator Lewis.
There was an analogy that was around, about,
One more time, I had a hard time.
there was an analogy that was kicked around about women, minorities, not being on the campus.
Correct.
And you mentioned that, in this particular example today, we're not talking about the basic right. So if not having the right to defend your life, liberty, and person isn't a basic right, then what is? And why isn't this a basic right?
Well, I have a hard time seeing why we would be denied that right in this day and age. Gun-free zones were created for a reason. It is the law, and people who created those zones probably did way more research than any of us did, because that was their job. That's what they were elected to do. And so I have a hard time seeing this as an issue of rights, because it's not right now. It's a gun-free zone. We can, there's specific places where those who've been elected to represent us have decided that this isn't a safe place for guns. You can have them everywhere else, but not here, not elementary schools, stuff like that. So I think there's a reason behind that.
There are a lot of questions remaining, and there's not a whole lot of time remaining. So is there a motion to extend by another 5 minutes has been made and seconded? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Nay. The chair of the ayes have that. The next question is Senator Brown.
Senator Brown, permission to preface, Mr. Speaker.
Sure.
My good buddy Kerry Cheshire and I hang out between political science classes. We have chips and soda. When he wrote up this bill, he didn't ask the administration their opinion or campus police department. I was wondering if you did, and if so, what is their opinion on this?
Yeah, I mean, the administration's opinion has never swayed my opinion, because that's not who we're here to represent. But yes, I've spoken to them. Campus police don't really like it, and the administration doesn't like it. But that's not the debate today. But thank you for asking. Yeah, just wanted to point that out.
Okay, Senator Mitchell.
Senator Mitchell, first class. So you said earlier in the presentation the reason that you vetoed the bill is that you think is to aim to reflect the bill as per the 2009 referendums. How is the freshman class represented in your city?
No, it wasn't in this, and by factual evidence, and just I believe it was Tyler. I said I hope that your guys' opinion is reflected in a spring referendum. But as we've seen up here, the 2009 results, the freshman and sophomore classes weren't represented in the 2011 results, yet pretty similar results. And if this is something that the student body really wants, if this is something that you and some other of these senators really want, then go talk to students about it, educate them. Let this happen organically, because that's what needs to happen. Thank you.
Senator Russo.
Senator Russo, off campus. Mr. President, we've spoken about what our impact is here, and my question is, if there are rights in our society today that are denied to people, as you would admit there are, why would we not try to rectify that by using a bill like this to go and lobby to the Texas legislature?
Chris, I have the hardest time connecting with that argument, because if people are being denied rights on college campuses all over the United States, then this would be a much bigger deal. This would be something that is a huge court case that people are bringing up in states all over the place, and is in the news and is a huge deal. But it's not. It's not something that is so major that this is a landmark Supreme Court case in our country's history. This is a gun-free zone right now, and if our students believe that they're being denied a right, then I think that they'll reflect that.
Senator
Withdrawn.
Senator Woolsey.
Yes. You mentioned something about not wondering what, not thinking this is one of our basic rights. So if you support gun-free zones, would that mean you also support free speech zones where people can only say what they want to if they're in this little box on a certain university?
I'm trying to remember. I had a meeting with the MSC. I don't remember what the deal was. I mean, obviously, no. I think everybody should have free speech everywhere. But you know, if you're in a movie theater and you yell fire, no, that's unacceptable. I mean, there are exceptions to that. But absolutely, I'm not trying to deny anybody their rights to do anything. I think there's obviously, like the situation, if you're in a movie theater and yell fire, that you just can't do it. And that's not a Supreme Court case right now. That's not a right that people feel like they need to have. It's understood that it's needed for safety. And so I see your question, but still kind of have a hard time connecting with that rights issue. But that's your point.
Thank you.
Senator Lewis.
Brief preface. So you had mentioned earlier that at Texas A&M, because it's a gun-free zone, we don't have a right to carry on campus. So my question to you is, where do rights come from, and what does the term unalienable mean?
I don't think we're going to get philosophical out here. This is above my head. Man, Lewis, I don't know. Let's talk about that in philosophy class. I'm sorry. I mean, rights are God-given, I think, and unalienable. Shoot. I mean, we live in this country. We're citizens. I mean, this isn't the debate that I'm looking to have tonight. And I think we're getting off track. And so that's all I've got for you. I'm sorry, Lewis.
Senator Chimino.
I think, as you can kind of try to make clear, that you don't think this is a matter of, at least the reason why you feel it wasn't a rights issue. You think it's a matter of the difference between the student opinion and how we as a Senate are representing that. And you mentioned something about organic change. I want to give you a chance to maybe elaborate a little bit on how, or I guess why you think the student opinion is a more key indicator, I guess, of that organic change for things like this.
Yeah. You know, I think the opinions of thousands of students are usually pretty solid, and I think that change comes most effectively when it's done by the masses rather than by a small group. And this, I mean, there's no denying the fact that this would be a massive change. And I think that needs to come from the student body, and they need to be prepared for that type of change rather than it being heaped on them and they're caught off guard and don't know what to expect.
Senator Heisel.
I just want to address the things that you brought up in the last answer of the
Sure, just keep it brief.
Yeah, I will. I believe you said 5,000 here versus you said 10,000. That was my understanding. Still, 20% is a very large sample size of the student body. And then the second thing I wanted to say was you claimed that you thought that maybe I just went and talked to my friends and peers, and that's how they had similar opinions as me. And actually, I sat in academic closet and purposely talked to people I did not know. So my opinions were not the same. Do you still stand by the opinion that you're more qualified to know the actual opinion of the students than we, the student senators, are?
You know, first of all, I didn't accuse you that I asked, and I know you can't answer in response. But that's something that I try to ask each of you, because we need to make sure we're getting out of our bubble, and I commend you on doing that. I'm not saying that my opinion is that my perception of what the student body wants is any better than y'all's is. I'm saying we have 2 years where the vote was tallied and students did not want it. Those are the 2 facts that I have to go on. This is not my perception of what everybody wants. Oh, I talk to people on campus all the time, and 60% of the people I talked to said this, and 40% said that they wanted it. No, not at all. I have 2 facts to go on, and that's what I made my decision based on. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I have a point of commission.
You can see
I'm curious of how many people voted for us to serve in our positions. Do you know that approximate number?
I believe the total number of votes cast, that's a kind of difficult question because there were a few different Senate elections, and I don't know the exact numbers off the top of my head. I believe in the primary elections, not counting engineering, and I think there was one other caucus that was not elected during the primaries. Wasn't it about?
It was around 24,000.
24,000 voted.
What?
Yeah. Okay. Are you combining the two elections? Yeah. Yeah. So that's not a fair comparison because you would only count in the second election, in the runoff election, and the subsequent election, which there was a subsequent election for one caucus, I believe. You would only count the people who voted in that caucus, and I believe it was something like 1,000 people who voted in engineering alone in the runoff. So you'd add 1,000 to, I think, the 13,000 who voted in the primary. Does that sound about right?
There's over 13 in the primary, but
yeah, so that'd be 15,000 who elected us.
Thank you. Point of information, Mr. Speaker. In the 2009 and in the 2011 elections as well, were there polling stations? I know the internet has always been used, but were there not also polling stations?
There were not polling stations. To my recollection, in the 2009 and 2011 Sioux Valley elections, there weren't polling stations. It was just online.
I know that there were one of the past elections.
I don't think it was either of those. I don't remember that, but that was a really long time ago, that first one. Oh, and also the first concealed carry referendum did not take place during the Sioux Valley elections. It took place during the month of May, I think even during finals week. So there weren't polling stations for that one, definitely. And then for the second one, that was during the primary election in 2011, which was the SVP election with Jeff Pickering, Hillary Albright, etc. So I don't remember polling stations being in that one either. Next question goes to Senator Mack.
Sorry, yeah, I was distracted. Okay, so John, essentially, this has come down, in my mind, I think you'd agree, that who has a better feel for student opinion, okay? And so my question, yeah, you can address it, is what is the distinction between your feel for student opinion and the vast majority in this room and their feel for student opinion? What makes your grasp of that greater?
Yeah, and I've tried to, if that seems to be my argument, then I apologize. But I feel like I've pointed out multiple times, to Hillary in particular, that I based it off of factual evidence from 2009 and 2011. And so that's what I have to base my decision on. I didn't say, oh, 45 people email me yes, and 65 people email me no. That wasn't it. It's based on historical evidence.
Brief follow-up, Scott?
You're at the end of the line. Next up is Senator Luce.
Hey, John.
Howdy.
Howdy, all right.
Gonna fill us off,
Senator Luce off campus.
Yes, sir.
So if a bill passed through Senate, and I'm not saying that it would,
Right.
a bill passed through the Senate saying that international students shouldn't be allowed to Texas A&M, would you send that to a referendum?
Just don't think that ever. I just don't ever see that happening. I think it's silly to think about hypotheticals like that would simply never happen. But absolutely, I trust that the student body would make the right decision and say, no, international students are a very valuable part of our Aggie experience. And they would say, all right, yeah, we need international students here.
All right, and that concludes the time for question and answer. So seeing no motions to extend it, we will now move into a period of presentation for the bill author.
Howdy. Howdy. All right. We listened to John's part. Now, thank you, John, for your presentation. I'm the author, so I get to come up here and do again. Hopefully, my question and answer isn't as long as his. But I want to start off with a quote by James Madison, who's considered the father of the Constitution. And he said, "Americans have the right and advantages of being armed, unlike the citizens of other countries, whose governments are afraid to trust the people with arms." That's just My question first is, do you follow this sign? This is the sign on Highway 6 on the way from Houston to College Station. Just a show of hands, how many people follow this sign and do not exceed 55 miles per hour? Oh man, not looking too good. Criminals don't follow these. 60% of convicted felons admitted that they avoided committing crimes when they knew when the victim was armed. And 40% of convicted felons admitted that they avoided committing crimes when they thought the victim might be armed. Signs don't stop crime. I think that's pretty simple. And the fact is, we're not safe now. Everybody talks as if we are currently safe, and possibly this reform would make us unsafe. It can't be more untrue. Since World War II, 77 mass shootings have occurred in the United States. All but one of them have occurred in gun-free zones. The definition for mass shooting is 3 or more people in an undomestic event. So if somebody, God forbid, killed their family, that's not reported here. But malls, movie theaters, schools, etc., is included in the statistic. So gun-free zones are basically murder allowed zones because they let you get away with these. 11% of police shootings kill an innocent person. That should speak for itself. 11%. I mean, if you remember, there was a story back at the beginning of the year. A man robbed a convenience store in Garland, which is up near Dallas. I don't know. The police officer shot at him 48 times. Only 1 bullet hit. Police shoot a lot more than concealed handgun license people do. And they're not even as safe as concealed handgun people are. So, that defeats that argument. Okay, here are the problems with current policy. We've talked about, oh, we have campus police, we have Maroon Alert, we have Code Maroon. That's great. I think they're awesome tools. The problem is, look at the timestamp on that. 5:12 p.m., person got it at 5:16 p.m. 4 minutes. How many minutes do you think it takes to kill somebody? Not 4. It takes a lot less. The average shooting, I believe it's, might be on a different statistic. The average shooting lasts 14 seconds or less. And not Supreme Court, a District of Columbia court has ruled that police don't have an obligation to protect you. They don't have an obligation to protect me. They don't have an obligation to protect anybody here on this campus. They just have a general obligation for the public safety. That's the problem with this. The only person that can physically protect yourself is you and possibly the other people around you, because they're the only ones that can respond in time. They're the only ones that can stop events like this from happening. Everybody talks about Virginia Tech. Everybody talks about Columbine. People don't talk about Appalachian Law School. What happened at Appalachian Law School was that there was a gunman who came on campus, ignoring the signs, and killed 11 people. 4 people went to their cars, got their concealed handguns that they were licensed to carry, and confronted the shooter and took him out before police even got there. Okay, here's another statistic. According to a U.S. Secret Service study into 37 school shootings, over half of the attacks were resolved or ended before law enforcement responded to the scene. In these cases, the attacker was stopped by faculty or fellow students, decided to stop shooting on his own, or killed himself. The study found that only 3 of the 37 school shootings researched involved shots being fired by law enforcement officers. So they all arrived after the fact. 34 out of 37, the police were no help. You cannot depend on police for your protection. And there's another statistic. 95% of the time, police arrive too late to prevent a crime or arrest the suspect. The problem is, police are a reactionary measure. Police are great. I completely support that we have security personnel. The problem is we can't depend on them because it's not feasible. We don't have SWAT teams that check people in at the door. We don't have metal detectors in every building. We don't have people, God forbid, the TSA frisking you down. Now, a lot of been talked about, well, what if these people, they get mad at their professor. They've got a PhD evaluation, and they might go off on it. There are over 9 colleges in over 4 different states where all of this has happened, and not once ever ever in the United States has anybody, for a PhD evaluation or otherwise, gotten mad and shot at their professor. Okay? And here are the requirements for everyone. You gotta be 21. 18 in a couple, I think like Maine, Alaska, whatever, where they have to fight grizzly bears in weight class. And for military and veterans. You can't have any felony convictions or pending convictions. No misdemeanor convictions, no big misdemeanor. Your speeding ticket's okay. From Highway 6 back there. But no misdemeanor convictions, no domestic violence, no chemical dependence. That's drug or alcohol. You know, like Adderall and other medications are covered in a different stipulation. You can't be delinquent on your child support payments. You can't have a court-ordered protective restraining order or pending restraining order. And you can't be diagnosed as suffering from a major psychiatric disorder. That's the one that, you know, requires medication such as Prozac or something. Here we go again. You cannot be involuntarily hospitalized. You must be a legal citizen of the United States in Texas. These are Texas laws. Residents can apply through other states and through a couple stipulations in this law. You have to be legal allowed to purchase a handgun.
3.5.
Okay, great. You have to attend a 10 to 15-hour training course, including instruction on state laws pertaining to shoot weapons, the use or threaten to use deadly force. Now, I've talked to a lot of people who have undergone these courses. I have several friends whose parents have CHLs. And the CHL is always as a tool of last resort. Believe me, regardless of what happens, if you have to use your gun, there's going to be a court case about it, and you're going to have to be able to defend yourself in court. Now, there have been a whole bunch of home invasions that have been stopped and stuff. You know, I personally have firearms in my home for that reason. And I would rather lose a limb or an arm or something rather than take out somebody else's life. But it is the last resort defense that everybody needs. You also have to pass a written test of the material covered in the training. You can't just, you know, get by showing up. And a 50-round shooting test, very similar to the annual requalification test required of Texas law enforcement officers. It's the same one minus the time to reload, which generally if you have a concealed handgun license, you're not carrying that much ammo anyway. You maybe have 2 clips because you don't need it. But, so that's why you don't have to do that. But I mean, it's just almost exactly the same as the police, who we generally trust. You also have to submit 3 notarized affidavits, 2 passport photos, and 2 official sets of fingerprints. You know, you have to pay the application fee and undergo the training, and you usually have to pay for the training as well. You have to wait 65 to 150 days. So it's not like you can have a, you know, plan, just a impulse to go get one and shoot somebody up or whatever. You have to have that waiting period, which delays a lot. And this makes us safer. Why? Here's a quote from a Missouri sheriff's deputy who is actually around, I think it's Columbia. When the University of Missouri was talking about allowing concealed carry on their campus, he says, in actual shootings, citizens do far better than law enforcement on hit potential. They hit their targets and they don't hit other people. I wish I could say the same for cops. We train more, they do better. That should speak for itself. And here's another statistic. Less than 1% of all gun homicides involve innocent bystanders. That's stray bullets shot by police or by the person defending themselves, not including, of course, the offender, of course, that would not be applied there. And that's the end of my presentation. I would just like to urge you to vote again, like you did last time with me, in making Texas A&M safer. I think personally that it would be a great lasting effect if we could get this passed and if we could get more of this, you know, to go on through other Texas universities. And with that, I yield the rest of my time.
Okay, we have a few people scheduled for questions. First, that is Chair.
Chair, you do 2 circles. What would your argument be to some of the students that spoke at the beginning that said, since they're international, they're not allowed to have one, or since they're under 20, they're not allowed to have one? Just curious what your thoughts were on that.
Oh, right. Well, I personally am under 20, but I don't think that just because I wouldn't have rights under this law, that we should continue taking away rights from other people. I think that international students should maybe talk about it, maybe write a bill that would address sort of maybe some requirements for international students, and then they could have a CHL. I think that would be I think the right to self-defense is intrinsic, and I don't think it's restricted to United States citizens. So that's probably right.
All right, next question is Senator Howard.
Rick Howard, Mays. As a representative of the student body and student senate, do you believe that you were elected because of your views on concealed carry on campus?
That's a great question. I don't really speculate on why people elected me. I think a lot of them probably said, Carrie, that's probably a girl's name. Maybe she's hot. Maybe. But, I really could roll there. I'd like to think that they researched me. I actually talked to people about my views and asked them, would you support me for this? And I got a lot of feedback that was positive. I did get a lot of people to say, I'm sure as hell not voting for you. That was probably about 5 people. I probably got about 40 that said yeah, so we're in good shape there. But, the fact is that they did vote. Those were the same people that voted for John or against John, whatever. So I think that if you're going to say that I am invalid, then you'd also have to say that he's invalid. Okay.
Senator White later.
Senator Rieger, off campus. My question is, how long exactly, like in a time span or date, does it take to acquire a CHL?
I think I just had it on. Maybe I'll go back. You can press the slideshow if that makes it. I want to say, wasn't it 85 to 160 days, something like that? Or remember the other? Huh?
No, that was after they realized 60.
I want to say the upper limit is 160 days, and the minimum threshold is 45 or 65. 65 to 150. Okay.
All right, Senator Gino.
Good job. A part of the bill that I've always had a lot of trouble with is, I can look at before actually it's working pretty good right now, but I guess pretty practical. Is it said that you want to not allow Texas A&M to have a policy that would restrict guns on campus anywhere? And I wanted to clarify that a little bit with the preface of after Virginia Tech, they convened a big assembly to figure out a bunch of recommendations. And they had 6 recommendations, and one of them was that the Virginia General Assembly should adopt legislation to clearly allow the institution of higher education to regulate possession of firearms. Now that's a very lengthy investigation. Why is your opinion different than the lengthy investigation after the Virginia Tech?
Well, I think there's a big difference between sort of Texan culture and Virginian culture. I'd like to take I don't think anybody else would disagree. Assuming that you did gather a body that conveyed different ideas, my idea would be one of them, which I'm sure was brought up. In fact, there was a Students for Concealed Carry group there. There was one in Boulder. They did that. So I don't really think that it would be disingenuous. I also think that this is the reason that language is in there is because right now we've sort of had to depend on the legislature and depend on courts to protect people's human rights in college institutions. We've had situations where people were denied free speech and that had to be codified in law. We've had situations where people were denied religious scholarships for religious reasons and otherwise. And back to my previous points, even admission of minorities or people that they don't like. So there's traditionally been a trend of the court or the legislature having to step in and mandate it. I don't think that it would happen on its own, so that's why we're having to reach up here. Is that it? Answers your question.
All right, are there any further questions? Seeing none, thank you for your presentation. We will now move into a period of debate. So, if you were going to debate, raise your hand or fist. Raising a hand is for, and voting for. Voting for is voting in favor of overturning the veto, meaning that the bill would pass. So if you want to overturn the veto, you vote for. If you want the veto to be sustained, meaning that the bill does not pass, then you would vote against and you would raise a fist. So give me a sec to write everything down.
Just to clarify, it's just like voting the first time, right?
Yes, it is just like the first time, just a different vote threshold. All right, and we will once again begin with the debate against Senator Bradford. We have 2.5 minutes.
Howdy! Howdy! All right, guys. Here we are again. It's good to see all y'all. Especially in this unfortunate circumstance. I thought John Claybrook did a great job with his presentation and made a lot of logical arguments against the past two referendums. But one thing I wanted to address was, what Speaker Rowan addressed was that it would be cowardly of us as senators to defer our opinions and arguments to a referendum. Now, I humbly disagree. I think the true cowardice is to not go to the referendum because you don't believe that much in your cause. If you believe that much in your cause, then you should be confident that it will override student, or a majority of the students will believe in it because it's the right thing to do and that they'll vote for it. Another thing I wanted to bring up is that, we sit here and we say, the students elected us to sit here and debate bills and vote and so forth. Well, they elected you, I'd say for a majority of the body at least, because they knew you, because you were their friend or a friend of a friend. I'd say a small percentage of you actually got elected for your political ideology or your beliefs on this issue, with the exception probably to the Aggie League comeback, because it doesn't take a genius to figure out what they believe in. But I mean, so guys, obviously, it's kind of vain to think like we were voted for our beliefs and whatnot, so I don't think that's valid either. I really do think that we need to vote down this bill. It needs to go to a referendum. We need to let the students decide. We need to let people like Justin Price and Chris Woolsey, who didn't have an opinion before, get to cast their votes in an opinion. And how much time I got?
45 seconds.
45 seconds. With that, I will yield to... I'll yield to God.
You can only yield to another person. Okay, speaking for Senator McBride. Thank you.
Starts to count. Well, howdy! Howdy! All right, real quick. So here's the deal. So everybody kind of loosen up a little bit. Everybody's fine. All right. We are. John has every right to veto a bill for whatever reasons he cites. Now, I personally have some disagreements for why he vetoes it. I think the whole student opinion thing, to be quite honest, is a cop-out. Okay. The people in this room who are against concealed carry, if there was a referendum that was passed that was pro-concealed carry, they would still be against concealed carry, and they'd still try to stop it in every way possible now. Don't be fooled. Okay? Don't be fooled. Trevor, I love you, we're friends, but come on, like, you're going to be against concealed carry regardless. If we put some conservative legislation on a referendum, let's say that we put in some pro-Christianity language into a referendum, or some, I mean, I could name all kind of offensive things that some people might find offensive, conservative legislation into a referendum, I'm sure that this conservative student body that we all agree is, it lives in Texas, is going to overwhelmingly support certain issues that you guys disagree with. And all of a sudden you would say, whoa, 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 we can't just go with student opinion here. They're biased. Okay, so understand that it's a cop-out, okay? So look, so John has his ability to, sometimes do what's right, do what's popular. Today it's right to be popular, whatever it is on any issue, it's fine, okay? But we're back in the Senate now, and it's our job to debate the principles of the bill. Okay, the principles of the bill is what we debate for. Okay, and at this point, I'm gonna be honest, I'm a facts and I'm a numbers guy. That's what I make my decisions on. I don't make them based on emotion, okay? I don't get all worked up and hate people because they disagree with me. I'm facts and emotions, okay? And the facts are that every single state and every single school that is implementing concealed carry, one thing is consistent throughout all of them. Their violent crime rates went down. And is that because criminals would come on campus and they start shooting concealed carry people to come to the rescue? No! It's because it's a preventative measure. It's a preventative measure, that's why. Okay, the criminals don't come anymore because they know that we are now able to protect ourselves. They just don't show up anymore. It's a preventative measure. Second of all, someone said that if we get concealed carry, that our school will become less diverse. Colorado State, which is also a large state school, Tier 1 school like ourselves, Division I athletics, they implemented concealed carry, and their campus, I looked it up just now, has become increasingly and exponentially more diverse since passing concealed carry on campus. So don't think that we're going to become less diverse as a result. Here's the deal. I honestly believe at the core of me, remember my last sentence? Yes. Okay. At the core of me, this is not about winning and losing. This is not about a certain side or another side. I am for this because I really, really honestly believe that we could be preventing a tragedy. And we really could be saving people's lives. That is why I'm for it, and that's it. And I don't want that on my conscience if something were to happen. I think that we are honestly helping people.
Senator Chimino against.
Howdy.
Howdy.
So I promise not to get all excited like I did last time. I said all the stuff I need to say about that, but just a couple of brief points. One, the already brought up about the students that reacted to a shooting. Those weren't regular students. Those were off-duty police officers and former Marines. So the kind of training is a little different. That's not to say we don't have those individuals on this campus, but it wasn't like a regular student with a concealed carry. They have extensive training. I think really all I wanted to say is kind of to echo something that Thomas said last time, I guess 2 times ago. That this issue, we've already had a lot of time debating it and bringing up sort of particulars of what we think and hypotheticals and things that kind of get us excited, get a chance to throw out a lot of really great ideas. And I think it's important to have, and we already had that. I think John did a really good job of changing the direction, at least to say what we think about how we're supposed to vote, because that's basically the purpose of that veto, or the principle behind that veto, was our responsibility to represent students and whether or not we did that effectively. And I personally don't think that we did that effectively, and that is reflected in the percentage difference there in the referendums that were increasingly more against, and then we were several percentage points more for that bill. So I think that's kind of the key point towards the veto. So to think that he would be an accomplice to crime or Pontius Pilate or something ridiculous like that, I think is incendiary at the very least, and really accusatory of something that's not something that we should be doing as Aggies. If you vote against this bill, that does not mean that you're trying to encourage violence or take your rights away or make you an unsafe Aggie. That's not at all the intention. I think some of us believe that bringing this measure onto campus, either we may not be ready for, as reflected in the referendums as the student body, the same exact way that we were all put into this room. They had to click a very similar button to do it. I think that we should be moving with the student body, and if we need to lead them to make a better decision, let's lead them to make that decision in the spring, as we all think we are ready to do as a student body. So,
Senator Russo.
Chris Russo, off campus. We already had this debate 2 weeks ago, and there's nothing new that's come up. We talked about a referendum, we had a vote on it, we rejected it for reasons that were brought up in the past and that have been brought up many times tonight. We talked about, whether we should just defer to these 2 referenda that were 2 years ago and don't represent a huge amount of the student population today. We rejected that notion and we passed this bill by a 2/3 margin. Now, I can talk all night about the facts of concealed carry, and I think people will do that, and I'm confident that the facts are on that side. But, to just rehash this and try to stress that somehow that being armed with the facts and doing the right thing is wrong, that just is something that's crazy to me. you cannot just take this notion that of direct democracy and say that it is sacrosanct. Direct democracy is nothing more than two wolves and a sheep voting on what's for lunch. And there's no guarantee of the rights of individual in that process. So if you just lean on direct democracy, it's exactly what I said. It's not necessarily being directly responsible for it, but at the same time, it is washing your hands of doing what is right and deferring to other people who may not have all of the information, may not have considered this, may not have debated it. Now, this is why we passed the bill last week, and I urge you to do the same this week by the same margin or greater. There's no new information that we're presented with this week, and this isn't a convincing argument. We've rehashed it, we've rejected these arguments in the past, and then with this remaining time, I'm going to yield to Senator Moley.
Just 45 seconds.
Yield to Mandrake.
Howdy. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, I think Carrie's presentation was great. I think it really drives home the point I was trying to make when I asked President Claybrook if he thinks that students are as well versed and as well researched as we are in this room about this issue. And he told me that he thinks they are. Now, I like and I respect John completely, but I also completely disagree with that. I think that everyone in this room is much more informed about this issue than the average student, and that we need to make the decision that is best on our conscience based on facts. And with that, I yield to the Chris.
Okay, one more thing really quickly. How much time?
5 seconds.
5 seconds. Okay, there's this issue called bias. Like, there's no reason for the people that supported this bill once it passed to email him and tell him, like, I support this, unless they knew there was a possibility of a veto, which is, usually beyond the scope of that kind of motivation. So that's definitely going to be reflected in the numbers that were presented there. Thanks.
All right. Debating against Senator Chubino.
Howdy. So something that I just remembered was I've been here for way too long, and I was here for the 2009 and the 2011 and a year before that. But there on campus there was a Students for Concealed Carry organization, and they had a very serious and concerted effort to bring information on campus to students to share about the referendum that was coming up, with the specific intention of passing that referendum to support concealed carry. There was no such concerted effort on campus against concealed carry, but it still didn't pass. And I think that's something that's kind of important too. The information that we have as students may not be the clear information about the penal codes in Texas, which a lot of us were actually unfamiliar until the moment we debated it 2 weeks ago, or the particulars about certain instances all over the country about concealed carry. What they knew was what they needed as students and what they felt was important for them to protect themselves as students. And even with a concerted and clear, hardworking effort from the Students for Concealed Carry on campus, they still were unable to pass that bill. When we did a debate of that, I debated against the bill against the gentleman, I forget his name now, but he's a full-time, I guess a full-time volunteer. I'm not sure he's paid, but has been working on this issue for like 10 years or something like that. Incredibly well versed on the issue, and I learned about it in like 2 weeks. So I had the chance to debate this guy. When I went to debate, I did not know who he was. I did not know who I was debating. You can still find the video online if you like. He did an incredible job, but even with experts like that coming from outside of campus, with a concerted effort from people all over campus to do their best to bring guns onto campus, the students still were able to say, no, I don't think that's a good idea, multiple times and with more force over the couple of years. But to say that students are uninformed, I think that you're just wrong about what they're informed about. They're informed about their intentions, about what they feel about being safe, and how they want to make that happen. So I think it's kind of insulting to Aggie that's saying Pontius Pilate and saying that Aggies are uninformed, I think is inappropriate as student representatives. I think we should respect the opinion of students, even if we don't think they know what we all know. So,
speaking in favor of Chairman Reed.
I'll yield to Chair. I represent
speaking to on-campus representative organizations. So every week I try to go to RHA and RHA President's Council's meetings, and that's where all the Hall Council presidents from every single hall on campus meet once a week. So Senator Hurdy and I try to keep up with them and bring up issues and bills. And when we brought up the concealed carry bill, out of maybe 30 people in the room, only 3 of them were concerned about the bill, and they did not express opposition. They were just concerned about the bill. But the overwhelming majority in the room, and I know that that is not scientific, and I'm not saying it is because I'm one of those that believes that if you talk to 5, 10, 20, 100 students, that's not representative of scientific representation of your caucus. You were elected to vote on your judgment and research, and I stand by that. But out of the maybe 30 people in the room, 27, they may not have been so much versed and in favor of the bill, but they realized that, and I'm gonna take back that they were in favor of the bill. They were in favor of the bill because they realized that guns are a reality, and that crime is a reality, and that putting gun-free zones on campus is not going to stop criminals from coming on campus. So I think it's important that we consider the voice of on-campus residents, and that's not, they're not the ones that you may be voting on, although they also elected some of y'all based on academic caucus. But in talking to constituents from both South Side and North Side caucuses, I think the overwhelming majority of closer representatives elected by the student body on campus support concealed carry. And another reason why I think it's important is because these students live on campus and they would be impacted by this should concealed carry be allowed. They would be impacted by this by concealed carry every minute of their on-campus experience, which is a lot more than 60 hours. It's the moment they sleep, the moment they wake up, the moment they go to class. So vote in favor of this bill, overturn the veto.
Mr. Speaker, I move for previous question.
Okay, a motion has been made for previous question and has received multiple seconds. The chair will advise the body that there are only 3 seconds remaining in debate anyway. So, all in favor of previous question, which means moving into a vote, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, please say nay. Nay. The opinion of the chair, the ayes have that. We will now take the vote.
Point of information.
Please say your point.
Mr. Speaker, were there polling stations during the 2009-2011 elections? Can you refer to me? Yes, there were. And point of information, Mr. Speaker, were any of those polling stations on West Campus?
I maybe they not.
No.
I suppose they're not.
Mr. Speaker,
Go ahead.
I move for a voice vote, or a roll call vote.
Voice vote.
Not vote, roll call vote. What I mean, not what I say.
I move for you cannot put a secret ballot on a main motion like this. So, are there any seconds? Second. All right, that has received more than 1 second, so we better take a roll call vote. Sorry. All right, Speaker Fernandez. Guys, be quiet.
Myself against. Wait, no, for it's.
There's, okay, first of all, there's a point of information.
Sorry, this, we're voting for the bill, correct?
Yes.
And 4 is to,
If you support the bill, which would mean overturning the veto, thus passing the bill, is for. Sustaining the veto, thus making the bill fail, is against. Does that clarify it?
Myself, against. Chair Harris.
4.
Chair Mandry.
4.
Chair Price.
4.
Chair Cheshire.
4.
Chair Ganum.
4.
Chair Sosa.
4.
Chair Miller.
4.
Senator Zhang. Senator Howard.
Again.
Senator Hoyle.
Against.
Senator Daly. Senator Tosh.
Against.
Senator Rhodey.
4.
Senator Smith.
4.
Senator Senator Slusser.
4.
Senator Smith. Smith. Senator Salaya.
Against.
Senator Pringle. Senator Castelleja.
4.
Senator Kim.
4.
Senator Rios.
4.
Senator Nate. Senator Garcia.
4.
Senator Mitchell.
4.
Senator O'Neill.
Against.
Senator Green.
4.
Senator Stewart.
4.
Senator Forney. Senator McCreary. Senator Carpenter.
Against.
Senator Owens.
4.
Senator Kingsbury.
4.
Senator Woolridge.
4.
Senator McNutt.
4.
Senator Bryson.
4.
Senator Marlowe.
4.
Senator Hurley.
4.
Senator Woolsey.
4.
Senator Luce.
4.
Senator Boyd.
Against.
Senator Allen. Senator G.
4.
Senator Russo.
4.
Senator Potcutter.
4.
Senator Joyce.
4.
Senator Colwell.
4.
Senator Bruckmiller. Senator Flick. Senator Kelly.
Against.
Senator Phelps.
4.
Senator Piquet.
4.
Senator Brown.
Against.
Senator Carey. Senator Mulley.
4.
Senator Heisel.
4.
Senator Hawks.
4.
Senator Melendez.
Against.
Senator Williamson. Senator Uyghur.
4.
Senator Blessing.
Against.
Senator Wood.
4.
Senator Puente.
Against.
Senator Shamino.
Against.
Senator Pennyman.
4.
Senator Mountain.
4.
Senator Black.
4.
Senator Bayona.
All right. So by my count, by a vote of 41 in favor to 16 against, the veto is overturned and this bill passes. The chair will entertain a motion for a 2-minute recess before we.
So moved.
Yes.
So
Followed me. I'm like, yeah. Well, but like I kept retweeting, or not retweeting, but tweeting at him, like from Senate. But not as me, but I retweeted one thing. He was calling me personally, not just the Senate, but me personally. I don't know if I was okay with it, but.
Who's calling? Sean. I think he started.